But the reality is that, from a technological perspective, what if it moves towards, designer babies? Is that ethical or is that not? These are the questions that you need to think about. But the fact is that if a parent can get a child, now that's and they've been trying for a long time. If a technology can help there, isn't that something that we should be adopting? So there is an ethical dilemma, right? There's one of the key project that we are very emotional about is that we do want to make sure that we launch this early detection test in India before the end of this year. And the reason this is important for us is, as you know, that if you can detect this disease early, it's half the war won. Right. The project that I'm very passionate about, we're doing something with ACTRAC, where we believe we've got a specific molecule that can either slow down the progression of the disease or retard the growth of this disease for some types of cancer, as long as you catch it prior to tumor formation. What we believe is that our work will impact so many lives. It's already become the largest killer in the Western world. There are 800,000 people dying in India alone every year because of this disease. So if we are able to turn this into an early detection disease and able to try and delay the onset of the disease through the breakthrough that we are making on the molecular medicine side, we believe that this will help a lot of people.
What, in your eyes, is the biggest ethical challenge that AI in medicine needs to tackle?
There's tremendous power in the kind of information that we are capturing, right? And the reality is that while there's tremendous benefits that you can achieve, there's potential for the technologies to be used not for good purposes as well. And I think there's tremendous power in AI, but the reality is there's no doubting the fact that there's tremendous potential if these technologies are used for the good.
Thank you, Ashish. Toby, what would you say is the biggest ethical dilemma that AI in medicine needs to tackle?
Well, I'd agree. I think the biggest question is, should we do things that just because we can do them doesn't mean we should? And we've spent the last couple of 100 years developing a very rich set of ethical principles around beneficence, non-maleficence, justice, and autonomy that have been used to inform the debate around other medical technologies in the past. And those are perfect ethical principles to put the discussion around artificial intelligence in medicine. So I don't think we need to invent any new ethics, but we do have to worry about some problems like fairness that do get amplified possibly by these technologies. But we've always had to worry about the fairness. We've always, whether it be about humans in their biased way or about the data that we were using. And it's just that if we're careless in how we apply AI, those questions just become that much more pressing and more important.
So if I can just say one thing, to Toby's example, it's such a beautiful example that he gave on for IVF, right? But the reality is that, from a technological perspective, what if it moves towards, designer babies? Is that ethical or is that not? These are the questions that you need to think about. But the fact is that if a parent can get a child, now that's and they've been trying for a long time. If a technology can help there, isn't that something that we should be adopting? So there is an ethical dilemma, right?
And what this reminds me of is Asimov's suggested laws of for robots and behavior in robots. A robot may not injure a human being. A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, and a robot must protect its own existence as long as its protection does not conflict with the first or second laws. Would you agree with that?
I think having laws, just as you talked about the robot laws, doctors typically take the hypocrite. So the challenge, however, which is more difficult to solve, is the transparency of AI/ML systems, because all these laws are contingent to the current state of knowledge of the practitioner, medical practitioner, of the robot. So now, if we are delegating some of that decision making, or augmenting our decisions via machines, we are relying upon a black box, and that brings in distrust. So I believe that the ethics that clinicians will follow going forward while engaging with machines will need a lot more transparency of machine intelligence, so that clinicians can actually adopt it. And then ethics may become not so much of a problem going forward.
I would like to disagree there. I think transparency, where it's possible, is of course often desirable. But there are many settings where transparency is not possible or not even desirable. And I point to my own doctor. She is not particularly transparent in her decision making. She's got decades of experience that she tries to distill down. But I put my life in her hands because I know there are institutions, the systems in place, but she's a good doctor. And so that I can go into the room without having to be an expert that she is in all the different fields of medicine. And the same will be true. I often wonder, I could perhaps build an AI system that is a better system at diagnosing, a particular type of cancer. Maybe it's going to be more accurate if it's not transparent. Now, what choice would I have? Do I go for a more transparent, less accurate system? Or do I trust my life in a system that's more accurate, but less transparent? I know what I'm going to choose. I'm going to choose the less transparent, more accurate system because I'm going to live longer that way.
I partly agree. I think, yeah. So it's medicine is a field where the decision rests on the clinician. So I think the transparency to the patient may not be necessary, but if the clinicians are comfortable making that choice with the state of the AI systems, they have to sign off on the patient's decision making. So I do partly agree.
Okay.
I think we're putting our finger exactly on the issue here, which is how do we design the institutions so that we can put these systems in there, so that, like the bridge behind me, we can put our lives entrust our lives with them, and that's still to be done. We don't have those institutions. We have that for doctors, human doctors, but we have yet to develop that properly, appropriately for our AI assistants.
Crystal gaze into the near future with our series Be Inspired, that takes you into the world of AI, medicine, space, good governance, economy, and so much more. Subscribe to our channel now.